May I now invite the third presentation, Mariya? The paper is on income inequality and trust in national governments in Central, Eastern, and Southeastern Europe. And again, your time is 15 minutes, but if you finish it early, it will be appreciated because we are slightly behind schedule.
Okay, I'll do my best. You have to go to full mode. Yeah, I mean, this paper is it's actually a bit of a kind of a different well, it's not a different issue, but it's a different set of countries, and including the country of Branko, including my own country. So it's basically Western Balkan countries and several EU member states. And what I'm yes, thank you. And what I've been doing here is not only to focus on what income inequality is determined by, but also what income inequality determines. And it's kind of an initial study, so it's one of the first studies actually looking at this set of countries, estimating regional income inequalities, inequality measures. So on the regional level, we are going much granular, and this is something that hasn't been done so far. And look at also how it determines trust in institutions. So what is the motivation? So the motivation is that basically trust is something that has been mentioned in recent time and recent years as something, trust in institutions, something crucial for the functioning of the economy. So for instance, last year's Madame Lagarde mentioned that I believe we needed more than ever to address the challenges of the 3 T's, so trade, turbulence, and trust. And something which is very, very important for trust is that it's easy or it's very fast to lose trust, but it's very easy, it's very difficult to gain it, to regain it. So trust lives on horseback, but returned on foot. So as I already mentioned, trust is important. Trust in institutions is very important for different transactions, including taxation, finance, and banking. So what is the data? The data comes from a survey which wasn't meant to be an income survey. It was meant to measure the euroization, so the use of foreign currency in Eastern Europe. So for what was foreign currency used for? So that's why it includes countries that haven't introduced the euro still in Europe and also are still not members of the European Union. So having said that, the countries we are looking at are 10 countries, Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Croatia, Hungary, North Macedonia, Poland, Russia, and Serbia. And we are looking at the period 2009 to 2015, which is also unique because it hasn't been done so far that we have such a long period of time for this issue. And there we go granular on the regional level and construct various income inequality measures and look how these measures, so how income inequality impacts the level of trust in institutions. I'll skip this. What is the transmission channels? But basically, there are several transmission channels. One of these channels, which is, for instance, the stratification channel, is something that relates the distance among people when inequality is higher, and then people tend to more distrust each other in this case. So this is the survey, and these are the countries. So I just looked up how big the region is as compared to Russia, and it's around the half of in terms of population. So basically, although it's a small region, it's very important as a trend. The samples are, it's basically 1,000 randomly selected respondents per country older than 14 years old. And the samples are done as such that they are representative at the country level in terms of age, gender, and regional distribution. The data on income is based on the following question. What is the total monthly income of the household after taxes? So we are not talking about disposable income here. We are talking about net income. We are taking and after that, the respondents have been asked to put their income in 20 categories, which have been defined on the region, on the country level as such to ensure that at most 10% of respondents are in each category. We apply different OECD weighting method to obtain equivalence income. The next, we had to deal with several challenges in this data. The first one is we had to impute missing data. In several countries, there really high number of missing data points. We estimated a Pareto-shaped distribution for the top 20 top 20 of the income distribution. Mr. Milanovic mentioned already that this is state-of-the-art practice for such type of question. And then, in order to correct for unprecise estimate of inequality measure, we ran a bootstrapping. This is just probably you can have a look at the paper. It's very detailed description how we did it. But basically, as the Pareto distribution is something which is really interesting. It was very challenging to do. But what we finally managed to make out of it is that we have a time varying Pareto coefficient, which is also one of the first, basically a first step in this direction. We have, so having performed all this estimation, we have an alpha, which is the Pareto estimation equaling 3.2 for the whole period of time and the whole set of countries. And the lowest alpha, which means the more unequal distribution that we got is in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the most equal distribution that we got is in Czech Republic, which is given the inequality measures also from other sources like Eurostat is not a surprise. So basically, it's in line with this. Next to the Gini coefficient, we estimate also different shares, so top 1, top 10, and bottom 10, top and 20, 10 and 20. So this is what we got just as a first glimpse. So basically, this is the Gini in 2009 and the Gini in 2015, and we see that in several countries there is an increase in Ginis on the country level and also on the regional level on average. And this is also in line what Eurostat data is showing for disposable income. How is the trust question asked? I'll go swiftly. It's just a question whether I would like to ask a question about how much trust you have in your government or cabinet of ministers, and the respondents had 5 different options to reply, and there we made a dummy variable out of that. So basically, if a respondent trusts completely and someone trusts, it's a 1 and 0 otherwise. For robustness check, we also define it a bit differently, as you see on the last line. So this is just descriptive evidence how are the regional inequality and trust related, and there is a slight negative correlation. So the empirical strategy we're using is a multi-level model which accounts for the fact that respondents in the same region are most likely to be interrelated in terms of respondents. So basically the autocorrelation assumption, no autocorrelation assumption is violated in this case, and also respondents in the same, from regions in the same country also interrelate. So the multi-level model is accounting for this fact. So this is the first step of results. What we see is basically that the first column, so the first column shows you what is the part of trust, so the level of trust, which is explained by regional factors, and this is shown by the intercorrelation coefficient, which is at the bottom. So basically, around 9% of the whole variation is explained by regional factors. And then in the next step, we are controlling for the regional coefficient Gini, and in the next columns as well. And there we see basically throughout all the specifications that we ran that we have a negative effect. So basically, the share, so the regional coefficient, so the Gini coefficient on regional level, the higher it is, the less people tend to trust. So this is in their governments. This is what our well, basically baseline results. What is when we go a bit granular and go to the social demographics? An interesting, at least to us, an interesting result was that, for instance, retired, so older people tend to trust more, which is also a kind of probably a bit of a specific ex-communist countries result that one can take out of it. Otherwise, in other studies, it had been shown to be a different fact. People who are positive about the future, about their future, and the economic situation in their countries also tend to trust their governments more as well. So there is, in terms of trust and age, we found also U-shaped correlation. So basically, younger and older respondents tend to trust more. So better educated respondents or pensioners trust more also. And people, it's not shown in the table, but people living in the main region, basically in the capital, trust generally less. This is what we have found. So then we add on some macroeconomic variables, so country level variables. We controlled. Oh no. So first of all, I'm sorry. So alternative measures of inequality. This is what we also tested for. So is it just to double check whether it's the regional Gini or also the other inequality measures are showing the same results or qualitatively the same results, and basically we could the results in column 1 and 2 and also 5 and 6 confirm these results, and the bottom, so the results in column 3 and 4 are showing basically the opposite picture, where the bottom shares 10 and 20, what is their impact. So basically there the impact is positive. So the higher the share of these people in the income distribution, the more they trust. We added to the results the macroeconomic. So basically, in the next step, we added the macroeconomic country level variables, and there we tested for regional unemployment, for the availability of minimum wages, for corruption index, rule of law, trust in police, or whether the country is a EU member or not. And what we see is basically in countries where we have a minimum wage setting, trust in the government is higher. What surprised us a bit, that the corruption index has a bit of a very weak negative, but a weak correlation with trust. But what we saw is that the trust in police correlates very strongly with trust in governments, which is probably not that surprising. And also, the higher the income, also the higher the GDP, is also related positively to trust. Interesting, EU member countries tend to trust a bit less than non-EU member countries in our sample. So this is a result that we could confirm in different specifications. I mean, as a concluding remark, it's a first step analysis on what determines trust and how inequality, income inequality is related to trust. we saw that rising inequality on regional level, so we have estimations on both on regional and country level, lowers individuals' trust in national governments. In spite of decreasing income inequality in some of the countries in our sample in this time period. This result holds across various robustness checks. It holds for the period 2009-2015, and we have estimations which are extending up to 2018. So basically, we could confirm the estimations also for this longer period. So it's a kind of it's a very robust result. We just wanted to stress, and we stress with this analysis, that the regional dimension of income distribution is particularly important, and it basically goes back also to what Mr. Milanovic says, that this national dimension is getting more important, more prominent. So aggregate measures may disguise underlying divergences. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite the discussant, Lexe. Yeah, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So I have traditionally I start with very brief summary, and then I have methodological comments and substantive comments. Well, a research question is the impact of income inequality on trust in government. Mariya and the study, this is 10 countries in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe, and data is used is a unique household survey by Austrian Central Bank, which was conducted in 2009-2015. This is a relatively large sample, about 100,000 respondents and about 1,000 in each country. So the authors used rather standard measure of trust, so 5-point scale from not trust at all to trust completely, and they transform it to the binary variable. And they also measure inequality at the regional and country level, and they used this question. And the key finding of this study is that higher income inequality at the regional level or at the country level lowers people's trust in government. So in general, I liked the paper, I read the text, and I can say that the paper is well written, and one of the advantages is a very careful work with income data, which obtained from this household survey, and very careful work with imputations, corrections, and bootstrapping, and so on. So, but still I have some substantive and methodological comments. Well, substantive comments, so the general question is, which is not what was not very clear from the text and from the presentation. So why should inequality affect trust in government? So if you want to study how income inequality affect trust and you show your results, you find negative relationship between them, then it would be nice to spend more time on this to explain this fact. So, and actually you received this negative relationship in your paper, but what substantive mechanisms that lie behind your results? Okay, it would be nice to discuss, to make a discussion on that. And this is related to your claimed contributions to the literature. So, as it is in the text, so one of the main contributions that you measure income inequality at the regional and country level using unique data, and actually you do large work to correct this data, so to do this high quality and to receive robust estimates of income inequality at the regional level for these countries. And this is, for some countries, this was made for the first time. But still, if your focusing is on this relationship between trust in institutions and income inequality, it would be good to explain your contribution to this literature, which is focused on determinants of trust and shows that inequality may be one of the driving factors of lower trust. So, the final contribution that you state that you use this multi-level modeling approach in your study, and this opens my methodological comments. So you estimate the probit model, and you have actually 3 levels of aggregation: individual level, regional level, country level, and you also have a time dimension. Okay, so you estimate non-linear probit model. Well, the general question is why this approach, multi-level modeling, is the most suitable approach in your case. So I'm familiar with this approach, and I can say that this is very rarely used by an economist. And you should justify why you use it. So there are some alternative approaches which more traditional for economists, for example, cluster robust standard errors. So if you would like to take into account that individuals are more similar within regions and within countries than randomly chosen, so you would like to control for the clusterization of errors, then economists often use this cluster robust standard errors, okay? So, and the ICC indicator, internal intra-class correlation coefficient, as far as I know, is not the ultimate indicator that's justifying the use. For example, in your data, you show that when you take raw data, you have ICC 0.008. Is it high enough to justify the use of MLM or not? I don't know. And when you include additional variables at the regional level, at the individual level, your ICC coefficient declines to about 0.03. So it's not clear for me, is it high enough to justify the use? So it's when you follow this approach, it's important to mention which estimation method you use. It's basically based on maximum likelihood estimation, so it's not OLS, and it distinguish between full maximum likelihood and restricted maximum likelihood, and to mention which software you use. For example, in Stata, MLM is not very good presented. Okay, so what is crucial for this method is to estimate random components and to show their significance. So, but you say nothing about this. So if not significant, it means that you don't need to include random effects. So this framework as a whole is not suitable in your case. And it's not clear for me whether you estimate 3-level model. So individuals nested in regions, regions nested in countries, or you just estimate two-level models. One is individuals within regions, and the other model, individuals within countries. So according to your data structure, it is more correct to estimate 3-level models because your regions are also nested within countries. And it means that standard errors at coefficients at the regional variables are also affected by this cluster correlation problem, okay? So, and at the higher level, at the level of countries, you have only 10 observations, so you have only 10 countries, and you also include country level variables. It means that your degrees of freedom is very low. So, and if you estimate these random components, include random effects at the country level, you will receive unreliable estimates. So, and also I have many other issues, technical issues, and only 2 points. So how you estimate regional fixed effects, how you include them together with variables at the regional level, because this is not compatible And so you use, to calculate your inequality measures at the regional level, you use data from regional level, from your survey, but your data are not representative at the regional level. So to what extent that this may induce bias in your inequality measures? So that's all. Thank you.